Okay, so in this short video, I want to cover my process for making this cool shader because it is fully procedural, made using basically only vector math. One of the coolest features about it is this slider, which allows me to move these wings back and forth. Yeah, this is a cool design I found in a game, and I found it really interesting, so I tried to recreate it using only shaders. And as you can tell, it's pretty big. I mean, a lot of these sections are pretty similar to each other, because I'm repeating pretty similar patterns on this design. A lot of these nodes are just for making round rectangles, and I used a special technique to make some round corners. I'll share that with you right now. First off, I used a subtract node on my object coordinates. I then used maximum 0, which removes all negative numbers, followed by a length node. As you can already tell, this gives me the SDF of a corner. So if I use a math less than node, I get this nice rounding effect, and if I increase my threshold, it becomes more and more round. But this is constantly at a right angle, so I use some extra nodes to set up a custom angle for each side. So here I'm basically separating both axes of the object coordinates and rotating them around. So here I can rotate the x-axis, the y-axis. If I add a vector math node to these texture coordinates and set it to maximum 0, I'm removing all negatives, like I mentioned earlier. I get this custom right angle. So let's use a less than with a low threshold, which means it'll be pretty sharp. Now, if I change any of these angles here on my vector rotate node, I'm changing the angle of this corner. So this is the right corner, and this is the left. So as you can see, I can make it pretty round or pretty sharp. So I use this technique to make the corners of this design. This is the image I tossed over my shader so that I could use it as a reference image. This helps me keep the design accurate. If I swap between my shader and my reference image, you can see there's little to no difference. After building a bunch of these rectangular blocks, I just connected the round corners, and that allowed me to make this nice design. I really like how it allows me to set the roundness of the corners. So this one here is much rounder than this one, and that was intentional. This allows me to make some pretty cool designs. For example, I can use it as a decal so I can put it on things, or I could simply use it to make this cool animation. By the way, the reason I have two values here is because these are different units of measurement. I use this pi symbol to show this is radians, and I use this degrees symbol to show this is in degrees. Radians tells you the angles of things using pi. So 180 degrees is equal to pi, and 2 pi is 360. This is good to know because when you use a value as an angle input for your rotation, it uses radians instead of degrees. So you'll have to use some math to equate it to 360 if you want it to fully rotate. And for an overview of the shader, all of this bottom portion is for making just these two wing flap things, and I use an absolute on the X to mirror it. I didn't build them both by hand. All of these nodes I have selected are for the two tip of the top wings, and this portion builds the middle. So when they're added together, it gives us this result. And I know these aren't actually wings, but I like calling things wings. I do that in a lot of my shaders. In this process, I'm adding the middle part. This is basically the top wing, and it's the simplest of them all. It's just two rounded rectangles, and this piece here, which joins them all together. These 5 pieces are all just rounded rectangles. So it's one rounded rectangle with an inset rounded rectangle that's subtracting. So all of these parts are pretty simple. And once I've made this main body, I subtract by this mask to get this result. And yeah, I hope you like this really quick overview. It was really fun to make. This took me about 1 day to create, and it was really good practice. I used it as math practice mostly. And yeah, that's basically it. I'll put a link in the description for my Blender materials page. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.